Our gold medal winning Olympians. Firstly, the man who won 2 gold medals on the same day, Ian Ferguson. 5 Olympics for him, 5 Olympics for Barbara Kendall. She's won gold, silver and bronze. Rob Waddell, welcome sir. Rower, yachtsman and rugby player, and our chef de mission to the Olympics this year.
How's the green velvet?
And I can't think of any better sports people to have to spend the next hour riding the bicycles. To get that. Oh, she's still going. She's actually, around it, she's still going. Thank you very much for being here today. And we're going to talk about playing to win. And I guess when it comes to playing to win, and we had all of that footage of the Olympics. For you, Ian, was it the Olympics that still stands out? Or do you have something else, a little moment from your past that you think was a little more special for you as a winner?
Well, nothing was actually more special than the Olympics. But I have had a special race, just a race in Ireland. And first time I ever went there, and it was just totally different. It was just so many people involved in this. It's almost a silly little creek, this river, called the Liffey. And it was a race down there, and I just loved it. It's just something about it, the culture. They gave you free whiskey all the time. It was
you weren't
awesome.
you didn't have to breathalyse before you got to the boat.
No, there's no pressure. They even gave me money which is the first time I've ever had money to turn up for a race. I go, yeah, I'm loving this.
Because it is often those little special things for you, and in a way, possibly, Barbara, beyond that kind of the stress and the vision. I guess the fact that everyone can see the Olympics, and there is all that stress. Do you have a sort of a race that you look back on fondly?
Maybe it was Dancing with the Stars.
Which in many ways, more stressful than the Olympics.
Way more stressful than the Olympic Games. Going completely out of your comfort zone and having to do a dance that you've learnt in 3 days on live TV. Just think about that for a minute.
I'm not going to.
And they can't,
I'll tell you what.
they can't rewind it and have another go. If you blow it, it's all over. So yeah, that was really stressful.
Yes, and for anyone who's laughing tonight, we will be filming the after-match function this evening for the conference next time. But enjoyable?
It was odd. It was like an amazing roller coaster ride of just fun, and experiences that, and they paid you to do it, which was even better. It was just like, wow, that was cool.
Outrageous. And Rob, I mean, you're sort of a multi-sport sportsman. You've got rugby. You played for Waikato. You've got the rowing, of course, and Team New Zealand. So throughout all of that sort of career of sporting highlights, anything that stands out?
Well, I never got asked to do Dancing with the Stars for some reason.
You'd be a very good dancer. Hasn't he got good limbs?
No coordination, nothing.
No, that's why he's a grinder.
Rugby was pretty short-lived. So look, I mean, the Olympics was a pinnacle event, and it's a big high point. It's very visible, but I think the interesting thing I find on reflecting is that it was, to go there and to achieve what I wanted to wasn't completely out of reach. It was, it was a little bit, and it was a big thing to go for. But probably some of the more vivid memories I have early on in my rowing days when I was trying to achieve things that seemed impossible at the time. One of the first was, it sounds strange to talk about it relative to the Olympic Games, but trying to make the top crew at my school, and it was a long way out of my reach. And I was told, hey, if you turn up at the school camp and you train hard and you do the score on the rowing machine, you row well, you'll make it. And I did all those things, and to this day, it's still one of the most vivid memories I've got was that feeling of achievement, hearing my name called out, because it was a goal. It was so far out of my reach at the time.
Because that is the thing, isn't it? And I was going to lead nicely into that question of when did you suddenly think, this is what I want to do? I want to spend all of my waking hours training ridiculously hard, often by yourself, for this goal. Was it right back then at school and you thought, that's what I want to do, this is the trajectory I want to take?
Well, I think one of the things I feel lucky with is I've been able to do what I'm passionate about. So it's been, for me, 20 years of high-level sport with 3 Olympic Games, 3 America's Cups, and then a season of rugby. And it's all gone by in a bit of a flash, to tell you the truth. I've just been lucky to do the things that I really enjoy. And I think, I guess coming out in my final years at school was evident that there was an opportunity there in rowing, and you start to dream of things like the Olympics, and it starts to, it's a step-by-step process. You never see all the way to the top, but you think, hey, this could be possible to make the New Zealand team, and once you're there, you start dreaming of the Olympics.
And Barbara, I mean, you're windsurfing. It's such a great sport. No one seems to do it anymore. It's all those paddle dorks everywhere. It's like, what is the point of that? You might as well just get a piece of 6x2 and a stick. Was there a moment where you transitioned from I guess just a genuine love of windsurfing to suddenly think, hey, I'm pretty good at this?
Well, I was quite a good sailor because I was brought up in boats. So I was sailing boats at 13. And then when my brother won the bronze medal in the Olympics in LA in '84, I was just like, well, that looks like a really fun sport. I'll give that a go. And because it was a transferable skills process, and I jumped onto the windsurfer and found that I had lots of natural talent in that. And the learning curve was so steep, and there was a lot of adrenaline involved. Because I was, or maybe still am, a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. And it just became, then the doors just opened because there weren't very many people doing it, so the opportunities were just golden. And having great role models like my brother and stealing all his equipment, when he wasn't...
Always handy.
When he wasn't when he was overseas.
You're the only brother-sister Olympic medal winning duo that New Zealand's had.
Yes.
So it's a lot of rivalry with the brother?
No, because he was always overseas and he's a boy. Yeah, so...
So you were naturally always slightly better than he was anyway.
Yeah, and then, so when my sport became Olympic in 1992, it was just like, okay, there's the dream. And I think that's been a bit of a pathway for a lot of women in sport because in Barcelona there weren't very many events for women to be able to compete in. In fact, the New Zealand team was only 33% women. And now in the Olympic Games, it's been a real push internationally and globally for more women in sport. And Rio, you'll see the likes of about 48% women, and every single country will be sending females to the Olympic Games in an event of some type. So if you think about countries like Saudi Arabia, where women aren't even allowed to drive cars, they're going to be in Rio competing in sport, which is absolutely culturally amazing.
It is. And Ian, it was a time when you transitioned from going for a gentle paddle of a sort of a morning or an afternoon to thinking, this could be me.
Not really. When I was at school, I was absolutely useless at everything. Absolutely. School especially. And then I saw surf lifesaving, and I saw them, these lifeguards with all the chicks hanging around them. I thought...
you saw the tiny trunks and thought, I could fit into those?
So I started swim training and surf lifesaving and became a top swimmer and totally dominated surf lifesaving at the time, and which actually incidentally helped because suddenly I became good at school as well. I got to end up with a degree and things like that. So
how did that work? Was it by surrounding yourself with people?
No, it was setting goals and things just for sport, and I had to. It just carried on into my, into school really, and I just wanted to be successful at everything then. And so if you're successful at one thing, you always, you feel bad if you're stupid at something else. So I made sure I did the whole lot. But then I moved into kayaking as it was an Olympic sport, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to the Olympics, so that was it.
In a way, you three of you, very much individual pursuits, but then at the time you go from that sort of, I sense that just you on the board or in the boat, and then working with a team as well. You've done the K2 and the K4, and you've done the double sculls, Barbara. Not so much room on a windsurfer. What's that transition like to then working with someone else in a highly competitive situation like that?
For me, it was a breakthrough, really, to work with other people. Because kayaking, I started out as an individual, and I really wanted to win just for me. It was me, and my competitors in New Zealand I fought against the whole time. But then it was a big battle all by yourself. No one sort of supports you because you're fighting against your mate the whole time. But as soon as you hop in a boat with them, you start getting supportive of each other, and you just get stronger and stronger bonds, and you work together. At the Los Angeles Olympics, I really wanted to win the singles. I wanted to be number one in the world. So that's that was my goal. So at those games, I went out in my singles race, knowing I was going to absolutely kill myself. No one was going to beat me. I went out there, crossed the finish line, I'd won. I was really knackered. A few hours later, I was back on the wall with Paul McDonald. When I crossed the line that time, I was twice as knackered, absolutely poked, because I wasn't just doing it for me, I was doing it for him as well. You're working for yourself, but you can give a little bit more for somebody else. The next day in the 4, when I finished that, I could not paddle. I couldn't help him get the boat to the side. It's just the more people in the boat, the more you want to do it. It's you, but it's them. So it's really important to have that team effect, and it's how you make 1 and 1 equal 3. Put 2 people together, you get extra out of it.
I don't know what school you went to.
It was an accounting degree.
And Rob as well, you've not only done the individual thing and then you've done the double sculls, but then working in that larger team environment under those high pressure situations with Team New Zealand, how do you transfer your individual goal, particularly say with the double sculls, to then working with someone else? Because you had that terrific competition with Mahi Drysdale, where you'd sort of beaten him through the season, and then they decided you'd have a 3-way race off to get that one Olympic spot, and he beat you, and you went to the double sculls. How was that as a moment for you?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that at the time was a real clash of 2 people with only 1 spot going for the games, and I think New Zealand sport's evolving all the time. I feel quite positive about how the team's shaping up for Rio this year, and one of the good indications of that is just the competition that's happening right throughout the country in all the sports. So that sort of one-on-one rivalry that occurred back then, that's actually happening in quite a lot of codes at the moment, albeit cycling, be it rowing, some very good people missing out because, it's even a mountain biking, you've got Sam Gaze and Anton Cooper now going just for 1 spot, so that's really exciting. I guess I had an interesting contrast because I spent years and years as an individual in the single scull, and you're out on the lake by yourself. I think one of the things that really helped is actually having an environment where you're forced to produce quality. So you try and put a team around you, try and put people that are there with you in training every day. My training partners used to be, ironically, the Evers-Swindell twins in the double scull. They were just that little bit quicker than me, which is always frustrating. But essentially the boat should be the same speed. But that was pretty tough. And then I spent all that time in Team New Zealand, and I think it was quite a change because I'd gone from years and years of keeping all the information to myself, and I'd never dream of sharing information with my opposition when I was competing overseas. It just you kept everything to your own advantage, and suddenly here I was in a team where you're expected to work with, to help, and also motivate exactly the same people you're actually trying to beat to get onto the A boat, because it's a competitive situation. There's 16 guys going for 8 spots or whatever the maths might be, or the boat, and it takes a bit of getting your head round. And I guess I sort of realised as you get closer and closer to the big day that the ultimate way in a team to achieve your own hidden agenda, your goal, whatever it might be, we've all got these things we try and achieve personally, is to be an amazing team player and just give really unselfishly, help the guys around you, and if the team's doing the very best it can, you'll get a great result.
So you don't hold on to that one, or you don't have that moment where you've given someone a piece of advice, a little tip or a technique, and suddenly you see them applying that and you think, oh shit, actually, they're going to be better than me.
No, I think that's the challenge in the team, is to be, to get around that mentality and be really unselfish. And I guess, it makes you think about how do you treat your opposition. Rowing, as any sport, very competitive, especially when you get this one-on-one rivalry and single sculling. And I guess I used to run the theory that I never wanted to give my opposition any reason at all to beat me. I didn't want them to ever be motivated, so I just tried to be as nice as I possibly could. And it's interesting on reflection in the final at the Sydney Olympic Games. Which was my moment at the Olympics, and we got to 250 metres to go of a 2,000 metre course, and I was still behind, and there was just this one moment in time. I can feel it, I can sense it, I can remember it vividly, where I just popped through. That was it, and I thought, okay, I've got it. And I went past, and I had a good length on the Swiss single sculler, Zeno Muller. And then the guy that was in 3rd place started coming up on him, and he found something extra, and they came at me, and they damn near caught me up. And his comment at the end of it was that he said, I didn't mind losing to you because I liked you, but I'd rather die than lose to the German.
So there you go. Nice guys can win. Barbara, how about for you? Again, windsurfing, just this very individual sport. How do you keep yourself going? Did you have a team of people around you? Because it must be difficult, hour after hour out there.
You were only as good as the team that you surrounded yourself with. So if I didn't have a team of people around me and went sailing, I'd have no idea how fast I was going or how good I was going. So one of the strategies of why windsurfing was so good back in the 80s and the 90s, and was the fact that my brother, because we were such a small group, we all trained together and did exactly what Rob said. You know, we actually had to share information with each other. We didn't hold anything back. And so the partnership that was formed between all of us, there was about 5 or 6 of us that were all training, travelling, competing against each other, but together. That was the only way we were going to lift the level of windsurfing to what we needed to get it to be able to get qualified for the Olympic Games. So, and what, interestingly enough, globally in windsurfing, all the windsurfers act as one big family. So because you'll only maybe get one windsurfer from, say, the Cook Islands and one from Estonia, and so they've got no one else to train with. So when we have competitions, all the windsurfers come out together and we all train together. And everything's shared.
From the rowing, obviously, or the kayaking, that sense of camaraderie within windsurfing. Did you have that within the kayaking world?
Yeah, we did, especially in my day where there's the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. And we had all the Western Bloc countries came to New Zealand in our summer and they just trained, and I organised their accommodation. They all just came out, and we were doing quite well at the time, so they all came out, and it just helped the Westerners fight the Eastern Bloc, basically.
The Cold War.
They were the enemy.
I always love the fact the Cold War fought in kayaks in New Zealand. It pretty much sums up our navy, actually. Rob, you know, with the rowing, a bit more sort of, you know, again, that sense of camaraderie?
Well,
or?
I think it depends on each personality.
Yeah.
I mean, what Ian's talking about is a fascinating moment in time, and I was probably that generation after. There were still elements of that in rowing. You know, the Eastern Bloc countries still sat in one part of the boat park and kept to themselves, but obviously, you know, the wall had come down and things were a bit more open. But I think it very much is up to each personality. I know, you know, some of the rowers now are very friendly with their opposition. They go on holiday together, they train together. Probably, you know, while I enjoyed the company of them, I probably didn't enjoy spending that much time with them if you're going to race them and try and beat them. So
they have a lot to talk about, the rowers. You know, the rugged individuals just rowing a lot, and then you'd think, is there anything to say after a day like that?
Well, the routine can get pretty simple. I think that the closer that you are from the food to the water to the bed, you know, that if you can limit the size of that circle, that's what it looks like when you're building up to an Olympic campaign.
And over those years, you know, people that you've worked with, Barbara, you know, is there anyone that stands out that you look back and you think, I would not have won those medals, or indeed I would not be the person I am today, as a person or an athlete without this particular person? Anyone like that?
So I think, because my career lasted 25 years, so it's a really long time from when I started competing internationally to when I retired, and I was 41. So you go through different stages, you know, of your life, and so the different teachers appear when you need to learn that learning. And in the beginning, obviously, it was my brother, because, you know, he'd won the gold medal in '88, and then I just picked up on his coattails during '92, and I figured that if I did everything that my brother did, that I was going to be pretty good. You know, because he'd won the gold, and if I could be as fast as him and followed his training methodology and everything, I'd be pretty good. So he really lifted me in '92 to winning the gold. But then after that, there were certain people that come in, and I had a mentor for the last sort of 15, 17 years of my career, like a performance coach, and she was a long way ahead of her time. Now, a lot of athletes, you know, you have coaches and mentors that guide you through business, guide you through decision making. She guided me through that sort of on an energetic basis.
How did that work? You know, she didn't ring her up and go, "How are you going today? Go sailing. I think I'm going to go to the mall. Go sailing." Because often people,
we loved shopping.
Yeah. It can be a difficult thing for people to say, and a lot of people may be resistant to say having a mentor, because they think that implies there's a weakness in them.
Well, that's old school thinking.
Yeah.
You know, like nowadays, most of the athletes that will be going to Rio have quite close connections with sports psychologists. Whereas in my time, if you have a sports psychologist, it means that you were a bit kooky. So times have changed, you know, and for us to stay ahead of this very fast moving world, it's really important that you have a close mentorship or coaching with somebody. And when I look at athletes, you know, when you look at the ratio of a coach per athlete, you're looking at 1 to 4 maximum. And when you get to the games, it's 1-on-1 pretty much. Whereas in business, you know, they look at managers to employees, it's 1 to 8. So, you know, if you're looking at success factors, that ratio of mentors and to you is really, really crucial. And if you get up to CEO level, then I would highly advocate for CEOs to have some sort of coach, mentor to guide them through what's happening today and the fast-changing world with all this disruptive technology and everything that's happening, really important you have those coaches and mentors around you.
So on a day-to-day level, what would those conversations entail? Obviously, it varied over the course of that time.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to go into the third dimension here. She was a little, the mentor that I had was very worked on energy, because energy is your currency. If you wake up in the morning and you have tons of energy, you know you're going to charge through decision making, through output, through everything that you want. So I would judge how I was feeling. If I woke up and I had energy, I was in the right spot, and what drains that energy and what builds up that energy. So it's like a currency. And so we would work on the energy drainers and the energy filler-uppers, and then eliminate the energy drainers or maintain, monitor them.
What would be an energy drainer?
Negative people, definitely. People that are really negative and always down on you are definitely energy drainers. Bad health, bad food, when you don't have the right food that's nourishing you. So now, as an athlete, scientific, it's all science and stuff. But as a corporate, it's so important to have that great energy, understanding your energy input and output. So positive people, good energy, and obviously having the right goals that are truth and attainable and achievable and measurable and specific and all those sorts of things. So that were some of the things that we would discuss and work on, and a lot of it's done on feeling, but really important.
Ian, did you have any, you spend a lot of time talking about your feelings?
No. I came from the bad old days. We didn't even have a coach, and we didn't get a coach until we'd actually won gold medals. It was...
At which point you didn't really need one.
It was quite strange. I went to Arthur Lydiard because I knew he was doing good things, so we got some programs from him and adapted them. But no, I really learnt from my guys in the water with me training. We just went through the process ourselves, and we didn't have a psychologist. Each other was the psychologist for the other. It was sort of whoever loses this session does the dishes or does this. We just kick your ass into gear. You either catch up or you do the hard yards.
Do you think it would have been different knowing the kind of the relationships that sports people have with their mentors and coaches now? Do you think it would have been different then for you? Would you have been better, different, faster?
I would have been. I'll tell you a story. Because when I was in New Zealand as a surf lifesaver, I was really good at it, and I won the Ironman every year. I sort of turned up virtually, and I won the swim and the ski and the board races and everything. So I was really confident. I was totally confident in myself. I believed in myself. Then I took up kayaking and went overseas, and suddenly I saw these Russians, East Germans and things. These guys are monsters, and I just lost all self-confidence. I trained hard. I was really quite good and fast, but I just raced these guys, and they'd just blow me out of the water. I just couldn't do it, and I'd always get to the final, but then I'd be up against 8 other Eastern Bloc countries and me, and I was useless. I just couldn't battle that because I didn't have confidence in myself against these big guys. And then one day we had a World Cup in Denmark, and another guy on our team was fighting against me to make the world champs, to be the person that competed. So it was a race off for the single spot, and he's just a Kiwi, so I knew I could beat him. So I just came up with this plan, had the plan, put it in place as the gun went off. I went and I was racing away, really confident, and I raced my heart out. Crossed the finish line, looked across, I'd beaten him, I knew I could, looked the other way, and beaten everyone. This Russian that I beat hadn't been beaten for 4 years in a single race. I beat him. So that was confidence. That was probably a psychologist I needed before then to make it happen sooner. But then from that day on, I learned I was good enough to win, so I did.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Did you have anyone over that time that you look back on, a mentor or someone who just gave you that piece of advice, and you think back to that person now and think, gosh, they made a difference?
No.
Or was it you, rugged individual in your tiny swimsuit, running fast?
I think that was it with me, yeah. And the guys in the team were the ones that probably helped me the most.
And Rob, again, that sense of being with those people, and you've had the 3 different codes. Does anyone stand out through all of that as someone that you think of and you think they really made a difference?
I've probably had elements of both throughout my sporting career. I've probably had both the extremes. I think when I started, and started doing well in my sport, it was probably the first beginnings of what you see as the modern day New Zealand sporting system. So I was one of the first to benefit from having a team of people around me. You get access to nutrition, physiology, psychology, etc. So while I didn't use all of that, I certainly used parts of it. Then you go into other codes, like for example sailing, where it was much more as Ian described, and when I was learning how to sail with the Team New Zealand boats, basically you knew you were doing a good job when people would stop yelling at you. It was sort of the line in the sand. There was sort of no flash sort of induction process. You just learnt the hard way. But I think one of the reasons New Zealand sport is doing well now is that there is an accepted blueprint of the things that make athletes successful. What Barbara refers to, and the person that was mentoring her early on, they come in different forms across New Zealand sport, but essentially what you might call it is a performance planner. It's that person that helps you plan your campaign and basically helps you figure out what do I need to do to win, and then puts a good plan together around it. And I think there's some really good learnings happening in that space, and a lot of the sports collaborate, they get together, they talk a lot, and we're small enough in New Zealand that we can do that, but not so big that we're clumsy. So I think it's actually coming a bit of a competitive advantage for New Zealand.
And as someone who is in charge, you're the chef de mission, and so you've got all of these people working together. What happens then when you're looking at something and you think, I don't think that relationship's working? Or for an athlete, they come and they say, look, I've got this person and we're not getting on. And you might actually think, well, I know that person is going to help you. Well, how do you manage that situation?
Well, you've got a number of different aspects to New Zealand sport, so you could probably split it into three areas. You've got the sport itself, which might be rowing, canoe, kayak, sailing. Then you've got the New Zealand Olympic Committee, and then you've also got the government referred to as High Performance Sport New Zealand, and the three kind of marry together. So I think one good thing that's happening is there is good collaboration between the three now, or it's evolving and it's improving. Certainly the intention is there is to keep working together. So one thing I've enjoyed, especially in the role, is coming in and the chef de mission role sits in sort of, I guess, inside a certain box. And
we'll just point out for people, that doesn't mean that he is the cook. You are the overall boss.
Well, we're in real trouble if I'm cooking, real trouble. My kids are horrified when they thought I might be the cook for the Olympic team. But one thing I've enjoyed is because I've had other experiences and other backgrounds is that there's things outside that we say, well, hey, I can tell that athletes maybe not do everything as well as they can with nutrition or just their preparation, and you're able to reach around those different areas and make that happen. So it's a positive.
Barbara, surrounding yourselves with these people, and it's nice to have that sort of protection, but as individuals within that world, when things aren't going well, how do you get up in the morning? How do you go back out and get back on the board and just continue improving and training and practicing day after day after day when you could just think, ugh?
Well, the team that you surround yourself, their key is to motivate you and to keep you in that place where you can get out on the water and go for it. So my husband was my coach for the last few Olympic Games, and I remember very clearly we were in Lake Garda in a World Championships, and I had my second daughter, and she was just 9 months old. And we were at the World Championships, and I had to place in the top 5 at this World Championships to get the funding to be able to continue on this journey. And coming into halfway through the regatta, I was sitting in 13th place, and I just had the massive meltdown. Like, it was just too hard. I had 2 kids, one was 4 and one was 1. Amy had an ear infection, so I was up twice in the night fixing an ear infection, and I wasn't young, so my recovery wasn't happening that it should be, and I was absolutely exhausted. And I just had a huge meltdown, like massive crying, one of those ones where you walk in and you go, oh, I'm going to close the door and walk away, one of those ones. I was having one of those ones in the bedroom. And I got it out of my system. I thought, you know what, it's obviously not meant to be. This has got too hard. I'm exhausted. 2 kids travelling, trying to do this. It's just too hard. And I sort of went, oh, well, I'll just go out and have fun. And that's the absolute key. As soon as you think fun, I'm just going to go out and do the best job that I possibly can. Your whole energy shifts. I went out and ended up placing 5th in those World Championships, ticked the box, and away we went. So there'll be moments where, everything just feels like your whole world is caving in, it's the end of it, and then you go, and it's like an energetic thing. You just let it go and go, right, why are we here? We're actually here to be happy. So let's go out and do what we love the most, and that's sailing a race and going around as boys as fast as you can.
And that is the difference between that and just been a casual attitude towards things, isn't it? You've still got that competitive edge, but it's rediscovering that love for what it is that you're actually doing.
And you think about, well, why are you doing it, and you go back to, what is the essence of life, and when you come back to that, actually at the end of the day, everyone wants to be happy. And passion and doing what you love is what guides, it's always been my guiding light.
Ian, I mean, you've obviously had that moment where you suddenly rediscovered that confidence, but were there any moments where you were out there and you were by yourself and you were just relentlessly training and you thought to yourself, what is the point of this?
Yeah, a lot of times when I first started, that's for sure. And I finally worked out for me a system that worked. Like, I wanted to beat these people, and I didn't know how. I didn't have the coach to tell me what to do or how to do it. So I worked out that if I trained harder than they did, then I could beat them. So what I thought was, everyone has good days and bad days, and I had bad days where it was raining and I didn't want to go training and it was miserable, I felt tired. Everyone has those bad days and they don't get out of bed. Well, I decided to, every time I had a bad day, I'd say, this is the best day, because everyone else is going to have these bad days and I won't have it. I'll get out on that day, so if it was raining, I'd go, yes, this is the day that counts. And I got out there and trained really hard on those days. And so I swiveled it around, so I became the hard nut that really did the hard yards. But then, that was on the hard work side, but then I also came to believe in enjoying it, like Barbara said, and I love the game of trying to beat the other competitors mentally, trying to beat them. It was just fun.
Do you have any little tricks?
Little tricks, yeah, little tricks. Like, the Americans came up with this was years ago, it was the first sort of erg thing I'd seen, but it was a thing where you could up the weight as you pushed against it, and it was really hard, you could really crank it up, and I go, we want one of those, but there was $6,000 to get it, we couldn't afford it. So I kept on thinking about it, and then I came up with this plan. I'll just go down to Woolies and buy a bit of rope and a bucket or two, a big bucket, a little bucket, I tie it onto the boat, and then I get out on the water. I'm doing it, and I can alter the pressure I have, and I'm towing hard shit or easy.
Like a little sailing drone thing behind you, right?
And that's what I did, and I was the first one to do that. And today, virtually everyone does it. But they have little tennis balls and things that it's grown from there.
Do you ever just surreptitiously change the bucket on someone else? It's like, I'm really not doing it today.
Yeah,
tie them to the wharf.
Yeah, so it's just really good resistance training. And so I got into that. Like, we were the first ones to ever wear sunglasses racing. We started with the Oakley sunglasses. That wasn't... we originally did that on this World Champs where we knew the sun was coming straight at our eyes, and Paul always splashed when he took off, and I got gushes of eyeballs. My eyeballs got washed out, and I thought, glasses, I'll wear glasses. So we both wore glasses, and the first time we wore them at the World Champs, everyone got real upset about it because they couldn't see our eyes. It was just dark shades around, and they complained, trying to say it wasn't part of team uniform as well. And we got away with it, and then everyone started doing it. So,
and it is one of the defining images. When I think of the two of you in the boat, I'm thinking of you with those razor glasses on, and it was a great look, terrifying, and
Yeah, we became known for that, and that's sort of doing things like that. Like, one year we turned up in Sweden for a World Cup, and the wind was really strong side tail wind, and for some reason we always have a little number on the back of our boat so that finish line can see what number lane's coming across, and for some reason they had this big one, and it was a steel frame with suckers on and a plastic thing in between. It was a big number, and we looked at the wind and thought, we can take advantage of that on the back of our boat. We'll make a little sail. So we angled it around the right way, and we took off down the course, and we won our race, and we're happy with each other, just warming down. When we looked in the next race behind us, everyone had raced across to the side of the bank, and they're all adjusting their things on it. So they were watching what we did from there on.
Technological advantages.
Yeah. But that was the game the whole time then, and it made it fun, how we could beat them, how we could psych them out. And we did lots of things to psych them out. We really were, and that was the fun games. And when we were, before a big race, we'd walk down, we'd just start talking to everybody, act as if we didn't even care. We'd go up to the competitors, hi, how you going, and things, and then it was just before we get on the water, we get really serious, go into tent or something, hide and do our warm-ups and things. Then we'd come out and we'd be carrying the boat down. We wouldn't just have it down there, we'd have it up here so our bicep was sticking out, the veins were poking out. And that competitors are walking down at the same time. They take one look before they get on the water, and shit, these guys are good. So it was that was a fun part about it. And we used to have a great laugh about it afterwards, but it's especially if we won. Yeah.
Rob, as an individual athlete, what were there moments where you suddenly thought, I don't know, what's the point of this? Or even again when you're in a team sport, because often you can be the loneliest you are when you're in a group. Were any moments like that for you?
Yeah, probably especially early on. We're probably on the receiving end of some of what Ian was talking about, where when I started competing, New Zealand rowing wasn't such a strong nation, and you'd go overseas, and we used to think that the coaches from other countries would just have a great amount of humour at New Zealand's expense. Guess what I told the Kiwis we do, You come back and there's some new training technique or something different you were doing, and you think, where's this come from? And it would have come from just discussion amongst the coaches. But inevitably you go through the highs and lows and you have the learning curves. And I think probably for me, I had a similar moment really in rowing, where I just, every semi-final, I was trying to break through the final. It's a big deal to break through the final on the international scene and do it regularly. I kept getting the same guy, and he'd always keep beating me, and it just became a block in my mind. And I guess the turning point was, you just get this mentality about focusing on what you can do. You focus on the process. You take care that you do it as well as you possibly can. And much like Ian explained, I got to the end of the race. It was a race in Ratzeburg in Germany. I turned around and went, wow, I've actually beaten him, because I didn't actually worry about him at all. I just focused on the process of doing it really well. But certainly lots of highs and lows. And I think one of the key things is, if you don't succeed, is actually getting to the real core of why you didn't, getting to the bottom, being really brutally honest. And that's almost the hardest part. And if you can do that, then the answers start to fall out of it.
And then interesting within that team environment too, that ability for when things are going very badly, for someone to be that motivator. Is that how it works within that dynamic, or is it the responsibility of everyone to I guess, G themselves along?
I think the team environment's more challenging because sometimes you've got egos and different opinions in the room, and it's hard to sometimes thrash these things out. But from my experience, it's certainly been a big way to go forward, is to try and get to the bottom of what those problems are, and then the answers become more clear.
Yeah. Because what happens, I guess, with a team sometimes, you can almost have a self-perpetuating cycle of defeat where things start not going well, and some people start to become down, and it becomes a little bit contagious. How do you stop that from happening?
I think you've just always got to look to lead. You've always got to look to be innovative and take the initiative. When you find out what you think you can do better, one of the biggest things that changes is you get a whole new sense of belief. They say the definition of insanity is repeating the same mistake over and over again. So, if you're getting something wrong, to actually go out and change it and say, no, you've changed it, come back and say, well, hey, I know I'm doing it better. You get a whole new sense of belief, and with that you go out and you'll keep finding ways to get faster. And I think probably my most recent reflection on that would be the time when I was sailing with Emirates, Team New Zealand, the America's Cup, in the final America's Cup. And, we're in a bit of it was a tight race, obviously, towards the end. And I can certainly promise you that there was a huge motivation in the team just to keep leading and to keep going fast and to keep improving. And every day we'd come in and you change something, you get out there and you go better. And, to give you some indication, we started that series doing 18 knots of boat speed upwind, and by the end we were doing 32. So unfortunately it was someone faster than us, but we were always evolving and always improving. And if you're not leading, you're following. And following means coming second, so you've got to take that initiative.
Actually, one time at the World Champs, just an example of that, it was the World Champs in Canada, and the Eastern Bloc at that time, the East Germans in particular, were really good. They won their good share of everything. They were the dominant team. And the very first race of the finals, the woman double faulted, and the K4, which is they're all the girls together, and they double faulted and they got kicked out. They did not win another medal in the whole team. It was just unbelievable how that shock went straight through the whole team to knock them all out. They just all crumbled. It was just something that went down. I've seen it before when they've all been there, and then suddenly the drug people have turned up and they've all suddenly got sick, so they can't compete, so they can't get tested. But that's another time.
Yeah. And it is that team, and we're probably all familiar with the terrible, what they call it, lay down Sally, where you had the eights and one of the team members, for whatever reason, couldn't compete. That must be just a devastating thing to happen within a group as tight as that.
Yeah,
I was actually commentating that race at the time. I did 4 Olympics actually. I was saying before I did 3, I did the 4th one as a commentator. These guys have both done 5, so I'm just a fly-by-nighter. But my 4th one was as doing commentary in 2004, and I just didn't know what to say. I mean, you know, they were in bronze medal, the Australian 8. It was looking great, and then one of them just lay down, and I think I said, I really hope for her sake she stays down. But no, she got up and kept going, and she was evidently able to still keep rowing. But unfortunately, things just got on top of her mentally. A lot of that, I think, just goes, a huge amount of it goes back to the preparation of what you do beforehand. And in her case, she had major problems beforehand. It was aware, and I think they were sort of hoping, not knowing. And at that level, you've got to know. You don't sort of, people say, "Oh, good luck. I hope you do well." You know whether you're going to do well or not.
Because that must be the difference with competing with the team. There's someone else there to let you down, in a way, or indeed you're the person that could let them down. So do you have a preference? Do you prefer just being by yourself out there in the kayak?
No, I always know if I'm in a team, if I've got one little fault, the others will take it up, and then because I was always strong at the end anyway, so if I made a little mistake, they'd hold on, and then I could come back again, and I could pull the team back up. So I always felt more comfortable in a team, and I think most people are like that. You get relays, and people just go out of their skin sometimes in a relay. They just pull something out of the bag, and it's because they don't care about themselves. They're trying for someone else, the team. Or, it's not really about them, and what if they miss out or do it wrong? It's just they go hard. Yeah.
Barbara, you've got that look on your face that says, if only the boards had been longer, I could have sold it to someone else. Did you ever think when you were competing in windsurfing and you looked at other sports where they did have teams, and there was a group of people competing in the event, do you ever get to think, oh, wouldn't mind doing that?
No.
That's a very good answer. It's succinct.
No, well, I love my sport, and I had this thing that I didn't want to be responsible for letting anyone else down. It was all on my shoulders. But when you did do bad, you did feel responsible anyway, because you had your coach, you had your team around you, people they'd put everything into you. And if you didn't do good, then you'd let not just yourself down, you'd let your parent, everybody else down as well. So there was that drive to do the best that you could, because you actually weren't doing it for yourself, you were doing it for all the people that had filtered into you to help you as well. But when you are in a team, there's a little pressure valve that can go off, because it's not just all about you, there's a whole bunch of you having to perform at the same time. And if you get that team dynamic right, how incredible it can be.
And team dynamic, without you don't have to name any names, and I don't know whether this has happened. Ever been in a team where something was massively dysfunctional and someone had to sort it out?
Interesting. I probably look back at again the contrast between what I've done as an individual and a team. I went from being a single sculler, and then you're in this team dynamic, and I really enjoy both environments. I genuinely think I am 50-50. I enjoy the camaraderie of being in a team, and after years and years of being by myself at Karapura, it was quite nice to have some friends in the boat. But
not that you could see them, because they were behind you.
No, well, in the sailing boat you need to be able to see them. But it was, that camaraderie, you really enjoy it. And I was a bit naive when I joined Team New Zealand, and you're in a workshop type environment. What a lot of people don't know is, as a sailor, you probably 80% of your time in the America's Cup is spent working on boats and design engineering and fitting things out. The other 20% you're sailing. So, some of the things, when I first joined, I got given an order form to go down to the nearby chandlery, which is where you buy sailing gear, and the order form was for a 12-inch reproductive tool. And then there was underwater battery drills and things like that.
So there is that
sort of humour.
That humour. Is that? Are our team dynamics different because we're New Zealanders than other teams that you've experienced overseas, would you think, Ian?
Our teams, I guess Kiwi teams are always more fun than other teams.
Can that be a negative at times? If you look at it, and have you ever looked at it and thought, shit, I wish we'd been a little bit more like those people?
No, because at the top level you've got to have that little bit of fun going on. If you're so intense yourself, all the top athletes are really different animals. I know with my friends, I'm very cautious with my friends that I don't compete against them, because they get pissed off with me, because I just go into this zone where I have to win, and so I won't compete against them. and I've got that competitiveness in me the whole time, and it's good just to relax and get rid of that a little bit.
Barbara?
Yes.
I was thinking about competing against Ian or something. You know, do you ever have a rival that you still think like a nemesis?
Yeah, actually, there was an Italian girl who went to 6 Olympic Games, and she's won 4 Olympic medals in windsurfing. So we were arch rivals because we were about the same age as well. But the difference with her, she never got married and she doesn't have kids. So that sort of gives you a personality contrast in the two of us. And interestingly enough, now she's getting into similar roles that I am within the International Olympic Committee. So we've met a few times, and it's really funny to meet your arch rival completely on a different playing field and actually have a good laugh about how intense you were, and get over a lot of the differences that you had during that time. So yeah, it's been great to be away from that very competitive, intense environment that I was for 25 years over the last 8 years in the roles that I've been in. It's been much easier on the stress levels.
Yeah, interesting. You find it a different dynamic within the women's sports world to what you see the guys doing, because you do have all of that other stuff. You do have, you know, the children and that side of things to think about as well. Is there a sort of a different mindset that happens within that?
Well, times are changing, you know, because I when I competed, I was the first girl in my sport to have kids and then come back and win a world championship, and then have the kids tagging along and then still placing the top 3 at world championships with 2 kids. Now in the windsurfing fleet, I would say the top 5 girls all have kids. And I remember when I had my first child, and the manager said, "You can't take your kid along. We don't have kids in this environment." And when I first brought my daughter when I became an IOC member, and I had to go to my first meeting in the International Olympic Committee, and it was the first time ever that someone had brought their baby along to a meeting. Well, what was I going to do? I was breastfeeding. You know, I can't not bring her to a 5-star, you know, to the IOC, and what am I going to do, you know? So things are really changing within the sporting world of women with those examples, but also in the field of play. I really noticed that if you're coaching women, you have to ask them how they feel in the morning. Because if they're not in the right space, you're going to get all sorts of emotional roller coaster rides that are happening. So we've actually got I found that when because I coached in 2012 in London, and we had to go, okay, how are we this morning? Let's get into the right space before we even hit the water. Whereas guys, they can kind of like just punch a few walls and they'll punch you in the arm and away they go, you know. So it's slightly
dumb.
a different, slightly different dynamics that happen with girls and guys.
Do you think that's changing, Rob? That we didn't used to say to guys, we would never say to Ed, "G'day, Ed, how are you feeling this morning?" But now there's an acceptance in a way that actually is kind of important for guys as well.
Well, put it this way, I had all my gold medals when I had kids. I'd already had the kids. So in the first one, he was actually at the opening ceremony of the first World Champs. So I went with me, because my wife, because it was just me, so she carried the flag in front. She was carrying him inside. And then because it was really hot and it was high altitude, she actually fainted, and she said, "I don't feel good," so she passed me the flag. And I grabbed her in one hand, in the other hand, I'm standing there with my wife hanging on one arm and the flag, and I'm trying to get my interpreter to take the flag, and he wouldn't do it, because it was Eastern Bloc country. We were in Bulgaria at the time, and he wouldn't touch us. Then in the end, I had to drop the flag and get her out of there. And
I was thinking he's going to drop the wife, because I couldn't drop the flag. Priorities.
And then the next year, I took him in on my shoulders to the World Champs in the opening ceremony. So, yeah, we get involved with the family too, but it doesn't affect our bodies quite like.
No.
But I think it sometimes makes a woman stronger though. I've seen that happen a few times. They come back
definitely stronger.
More.
Yeah, I mean, if you can put up with that, you can stand on a windsurfer for...
My daughter was 13 months and I came back and won the World Champs, and I'd only been windsurfing for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I got back on the board 6 weeks and then I won the World Champs. Now, that's not saying that the standard wasn't high. It was just physically, it's amazing what happens to you, and you come back with a very different attitude and a different approach. And it was just easy. It was bizarre how easy it was. It got more complicated with 2, but with 1 it was like, wow, that was kind of freaky.
Is there a sense of that family and having the importance of that family and camaraderie within the larger teams, the Team New Zealand, the Olympic team, that is a thing, or does there come a point where you want to get away from that distraction?
From my experience, look, it has to be when you're in a team environment, like Team New Zealand, where most people have families. You just can't ignore that's where a lot of people want to spend their time. So a lot of the functions and things are centred around that. And saying that, I did my competing largely before the kids came along, and it'd certainly be a challenge fitting them both in. I've got full respect for those that have. I think probably what killed it in the end for me in terms of sailing was that just the amount of time you have to spend overseas. I'd go and spend 3 or 4 months away overseas when your kids are 4, 5, 6, and I mean they cope just fine without you, but you're the one that misses out, and it's the time in your life when you want to be there with them.
Actually, just another story, at the World Champs in Germany, I took my son when he was competing for his first time at this particular regatta course. I took him down to the campground and just pointed to where he came from, because at the World Champs, the last year of the
tree was still there.
The last day of the World Champs, he was conceived there, and I just showed him. So. He loves the regatta course. He knows where his roots are. That's
well, he certainly knows where yours were. So, hey, I'm interested, Rob. We heard from Mel Parsons this morning, about the Farm Strong thing. I'm in stand-up. We do a lot of stand-up. It's an individualistic thing, and it's a very high pressure kind of thing. But and you get bad reviews and things like that. But I don't think it's anything compared to sports people. When I see these Monday morning quarterbacks just laying into sports people who have no one sets out to go rowing or playing a sport to fail. How do you deal with that mental health issue? Because I couldn't do it. I couldn't be one of those people and have those fuck knuckles, criticising me with the level of vitriol and passion. I think it's appalling. How do you deal with that?
It's part of what you are faced with, and I guess I was lucky initially. I was in a lower profile sport with rowing. You'd go away. I had 3 years of being in the B final, which was a big failure for what I've been tasked with, and you sort of creep back into the country and no one really notices. But what it did do was give me the opportunity to sort of not have that pressure, and I was able to I guess come through and whether it was because of that or not, but it was certainly nice to be able to just focus on what mattered. And I think in a bigger environment where you've got high exposure, and I think of something again like Team New Zealand, where you have got a huge focus on you, and everyone in New Zealand is an expert and they know what's going on. One quite landmark moment I think for that team was when it came back after 2013. It hadn't won. And the attitude seemed to be quite positive, and I'd say that had made a massive difference to whether Team New Zealand actually carried on or not. I'd say if we'd come back to a really negative welcome, if you could call it that, it wouldn't have the team wouldn't have endured. And it's funny, but that small stuff makes a difference.
And we were talking about that sense of feelings before, and that is important. What do you do within that culture of the Olympic team to make sure that people are okay?
Yeah, we've got an interesting dynamic because we have a huge group of people come from right around New Zealand, right around the world, together for a very short amount of time. We're only together for sort of 1 or 2 weeks, really, depending on when you come and go. And we are measured by one result, and that's how we perform. I mean, how we conduct ourselves too is obviously in the spotlight. But so we try and remain really performance focused. That's the goal of our team, is we all go in there to do a job. But there's things that fit around that, like making sure that you're enjoying yourself, you've got pride in being in the New Zealand team. But a big word we talk about is respect. Respect for the host nation and treating them the same way you'd want to be treated. Respect for the fact that New Zealand's watching you back home, and it's a very, sport is so important to New Zealanders. Most people remember where they were and what they were doing at a particular moment in time. That someone,
especially Ian,
someone, not that moment in time. I don't think it was televised, that one. I lost my train of thought now. Can't concentrate.
One thing lowers the tone of the conversation.
You always rely on a kayaker. it was that they said that you're performance orientated, and with that performance, I mean, there is that expectation, and it's measured. You have those benchmarks. We must get X number of goals.
That's what I was going to talk about.
Doesn't get that goal.
Is that word respect, and respect's a pretty big word in the team, and I guess what we try and encourage is people really respecting their teammates and using that as a decision-making tool. So if you're going to say something on social media, if you're going to tweet something, talk to the press and say something controversial, you really got to think about how will that help or hinder my teammates. It's amazing how one little tiny problem could just absorb a day of everyone's time. Coaches, managers, me, having to follow it up, media, etc. like that. So that word respect and trying to maintain that performance environment is a really big focus for the team.
And how about on that individual level for someone who's had that goal and they haven't got it? And obviously, I mean, you've all lost at some stage or other. How do you deal with that? Do you all have different techniques? Do you just let it go, or does it just eat away at you? Is there something even now that and particularly with the teammates, how do you get them over that? Because it can be, it's everything. You're building up to this one moment, and if it doesn't work out.
I'll go first. It's an interesting dynamic with the team too, because we'll have 210 athletes go away this year, or about 360 people in total when you include all the support staff, and only a very small percentage of those will win gold medals. A slightly bigger percentage will win a medal. So a lot of people come back disappointed, and I think that's one thing I'm very motivated to do in my time is to make sure that people celebrate and are well aware of achieving their best, and that in itself is something that lasts with you forever, and it gives you that inner sense of pride or not. And I think if collectively we can do that as a team, ironically that end result will improve across the team. But certainly it's a big question, and a lot of Olympians do leave their sport disappointed.
Did you leave disappointed?
No, I just got too old. In fact, I didn't get selected for the World Champs because even though I won everything, the trials, they decided I was too old. So that changed. But that's all right. I decided to put my hand up for the coach job, and I got the coach job, so I still went.
Because it is an interesting...
And I won a World Cup as a coach. I snuck in and did a race.
Barbara, how about you? Was it a decision where you went, that's it, I'm.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of defining moments. One was in Athens, and, I'd pretty much been in the top 3 in every single event leading up into Athens, and then sometimes my head wasn't connected with my body, and I had 2 sort of false starts during the regatta, and so that gave me maximum points on my scorecard, so I had to have, incredible performances all the other races to get into the medals, which I did. But on the last day, I needed to beat one more person and to get into that next spot, and I didn't do it. And then the realisation that I wasn't going to win a medal, and you're sailing back to the beach just going, shit, this is really, really not good. And you got to hold back because you know that all the press are going to be there to hound you, because you hadn't won a medal, and all you want to do is just go away and cry because it,
Fat, overweight sports journalists going, why didn't you do better?
Yeah, pretty much. And then being able to have to deal with that without, holding back your tears because you've just done, and then walking home, and I just remember the floodgates coming out. But it took me about 6 months to get over. So because that's the reality, you put 4 years of your life into it, and then you kind of feel like you failed because you got 5th or whatever it was, and it took a long time to, and this is a big area that the Olympic Committee is really looking at, is they call it post-Olympic depression. And even when you do succeed, there's this big dark place afterwards because you've put everything into this one thing to be the best you can be, and then it's finished. It's like if you're a dancer or a production, everything goes into the show, and then at the end you're just completely empty. And the realisation, it took me sort of 3 or 4 Olympics to figure this out, that actually it was a good thing because it meant that you'd put every piece of your heart and soul into competing, and if you weren't tired at the end of it, then there was something wrong with you. Yeah. It's how quickly you pick yourself up from those.
They often say, I think, I've heard it, if I'm not wrong, the most depressed person is the silver medal winner because they were so close to gold.
Yeah. I reckon 4th.
4th?
Yeah.
Absolutely, leather medal. It's just, that's the worst.
Leather medal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind a leather medal. Quite like leather. We have time for a couple of questions. Did anyone have any questions? I think we have to. I don't know whether does anyone have any questions? Because if not, I have more questions. Oh, there we go at the back. Hello, sir. Of course, the one person with the question has sat furthest away at altitude. Yell your question out.
Hey, Ian. So you've had a really successful career sports-wise, and you set goals to get there. May I ask, what goals have you got at the moment?
So your goals for the moment, Ian?
Goals at the moment is to make a dream of mine happen. I went to the Sydney Olympics to watch my son swim, and I saw the regatta course there for whitewater kayaking, and it's a man-made course. And I had a dream to have one in New Zealand, and at the moment, it's 4 weeks away. We open the Wero Whitewater Park in Auckland, in Manukau.
Is it just in Manukau there? I drove past it the other day. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's a huge project. It's taken me all this time to finally get it there, and it's all up and paid for, basically. And 4 more weeks, we'll have 2 rivers. One for grade 2, one a grade 4
Will
Olympic
they be
class.
swimmable?
So it's
a little dairy farming joke
beautiful, clean blue water, and it's just a river right on the side of the motorway. You can throw a stone from the motorway into our water.
Don't.
And it's got a waterfall, a 4.5 metre waterfall. And
will you get to cut the ribbon? Will there be a ribbon across, and you'll have to slalom down and cut it with scissors while on the move?
I'll probably fall out on the move. But we are planning a big opening on the 26th, and so it'll be flowing from then. We'll be rafting, kayaking, and the Olympic.
Will that ever be? You can't go because it's near Rainbow's End. Can you avoid Rainbow's End and just will people be able to go and paddle around? Yeah,
it's free just to walk in and watch, and we'll get around the world all the regatta course, the artificial whitewater courses. There's more people watching than are actually on the course because people just love watching people wipe out and smash themselves on white water.
What could be more Kiwi than that? Barbara, what are you? Because you're on the IOC.
Yeah,
committee.
so I've been on the International Olympic Committee for 12 years now. So, and I sit on 13 different executive boards, commission, and working groups for sport globally. So that's about 120 days a year that I'm travelling overseas to different meetings, and it's all a voluntary role. So I'm really looking forward to after Rio when my role finishes, because I'll have a whole bunch of time to do some other activities and things that I've got in the pipeline. But I'm looking forward to actually having a real job and real money coming in, which would be really great post Rio. So that's my goal, is to earn lots and lots of money. I'm not quite sure how yet.
Well, FMG have been voted one of the best workplaces in the country, and they'll always need someone on the end of the phone. Any other questions? Yes, sir, in the middle. So after the problems with the 80, so that was Moscow?
Yeah, actually, I retired after then. That was it for me, and but then a year and a half later, I got the bug again and paid back all the debt because I built up quite a big debt to go there for that. And then I got back in, and next Olympics we won, so it all paid off. But it was, I guess, I needed that break, and when I came back better and stronger than ever. So it sort of affected me at the time, but I had to get rid of my debt, and then I came back better. So, yeah, it worked out okay.
One more from here.
Rob, with drugs in sport being such a major issue, how do you coordinate a team so big in the Olympics to try and ensure that it's not effective results from going on?
So you had the drug factor, other than advising people to check their email.
Look, for sure, integrity is a massive issue in sport now, and there's just more and more stories coming out all the time. I guess our role in that is we just work really closely with the appropriate people in New Zealand and make sure that we're aligned, we're educating our athletes as much as we possibly can, and they're very aware of the risks and the pitfalls of being involved. And it's not just drugs; it's the whole. You're not allowed to bet on the games, you're not allowed to give inside information to anyone. Obviously, the IOC doping rules and regulations. So, look, it's a really big field now, and it's there. It's been there for a long time. We'd all like to see it go. But one thing I guess I feel quite happy to say publicly is I'd be very surprised if there's anything systematic happening in New Zealand. There might be the odd idiot who's doing something, but generally across all sports, you get a sense of something like that was happening, and it feels like New Zealand's doping control is of a very high standard. Not so sure, how that looks for other countries. I remember in my early days competing as a rower, and we had an athletes meeting at the end of the regatta. We went into a tent, and doping in sport was brought up, and one of my German competitors put up his hand because they were talking about EPO, which was the drug of choice at the time for the Tour de France. and he put up his hand and he said, I don't think EPO is a concern in rowing because we found it too expensive. Okay.
Jeez. I can tell you what, there's not a lot of people know it. There's been quite a rigorous drug testing in the comedy industry as well. We tested it and we think, yep, that is awesome. Keep on with that one. That's helping.
Yeah.
Hey, but look, before we go, very, very finally, unless anyone has one more very pressing question. No, good.
Oh, there's one there.
Sorry, there was one. Yes, in the centre. One very quickly.
Rob, just keen to know your time at Team New Zealand. Do you think most impressive person?
Oh, very good question.
And why?
So, Team New Zealand, the question was the most impressive person at Team New Zealand.
Good question.
Has to think about that one.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the amazing thing about being a team like that is you had a group of people that were all very good at what they did, and they're all very motivated, extremely motivated. And you know, when you work together, you genuinely do get above 100% because you've got such a talented group of people who might be experts at all the different areas, and the end result is really exciting. What you end up combining to produce. And there were just simply a number of really outstanding people right across the board, whether it be in sort of carbon fibre engineering through to the boat builders, are some of the best boat builders in the world. You know, at the head of it, you've got people like Grant Dalton. Well, Grant puts together an amazing campaign. He's the Olympic champion of fundraising, and he does it. He puts together a slick operation. I think probably one of the people I admire the most, and I didn't have much to do with him, unfortunately, only a little bit at the start of my career, was Sir Peter Blake. Yeah, he is and was a great New Zealander. He affected several generations of New Zealanders, and it's amazing now that people still involved in the sport talk very, very fondly of him. I only had that small interaction with him for a brief period of time, but he used to have a message to the team, and it sort of stuck with me. I guess it's one of the things, one of my favourite quotes. And he used to say to the team, every night when you go home, ask yourself the question, have I done everything I can to make this boat go faster? So I've always thought in any team, in any individual situation, that's a really strong question to ask yourself at the end of each day.
Barbara, do you have anything, that little mantra that you live by?
It's pretty hard to outdo that one. I mean,
It is.
That pretty much says it all, and that's the mantra I think that most athletes that perform at a very high level. You go to bed and you go, how can I do better things next day? And you wake up the next morning and you charge. And I think, it's being very truthful and very honest, and having those clear intentions. And then when you get into that flow of life is probably just where the magic really happens.
Ian?
I know I'm probably not going to perform as good as I used to, so my main goal now is I work best on helping others to achieve my goals for me. And that's so.
Like Chris Black.
I look after people and help them and encourage them to be really good at what they do, so I can get what I want done. It's
a very good piece of advice. Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause. Rob Waddell, Barbara Kendall, Ian Ferguson. Thank you very much. I will let you go. And there was actually... thank you. Yes. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thanks very
I
much.
bet you're a champion. Thank
Well
you.
done.
Awesome, Rob. Thank you. And I don't know about you, I grew up sailing catamarans, and that moment, the first time I saw that boat lift out of the water and fly, I actually stood up in my lounge and applauded it. I just thought, this is going to be fantastic. And I'm a huge supporter of Team New Zealand. I think as an international symbol for New Zealand, and I don't know if you know, but that carbon fibre technology they used in that mast, Waikato milking systems have now made carbon fibre rotary milking platforms based on that technology that they're exporting to the States that will revolutionise the milking of dairy cows. So I think that is just a wonderful sort of symbiosis of New Zealand, and it sums us up to a T. So ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to take a lunch break. We're going to be back in here at 1:30. Over the course of the next little while, please discuss amongst yourselves what playing to win means to you. And I think you have been very, very privileged today to see three of our finest athletes. So again, a round of applause for Ian Ferguson, Barbara Kendall and Rob Waddell.